Hey, what's up guys, welcome to my humble YouTube channel where I bring you fanfiction that will brighten your days. Before we start, a subscribe is greatly appreciated, and don't forget to leave a like and ring the bell icon so you won't miss exciting new fanfiction stories. A Return to School, Tensura x COTE, by Asuryii. Chapter 2. Attention garnered. As always, being a baby is the most boring period in any life, but the life here as a baby in the White Room is, well to say, interesting. I don't normally like paying attention to the time before I can crawl or begin to form words, but for once I decided to pay attention to it. And the intel I gained from it was, in a word, interesting, to say the least. This facility that I will be raised in is attempting to create the research to produce artificial geniuses by having kids given a complete education from birth. The idea itself has many issues morally among other things, but the idea is sound in a sense. I get the feeling that this whole facility has more background agendas, but the way they're going about it is both right and wrong. The idea of the environment affecting people's growth is definitely true, but the ousting of anything deemed unnecessary to the extremes is far off from the right direction to take. I see the logic and reasoning behind the decisions this facility makes, and considering it's in the early stages based on the generation I am a part of, they appear to be looking for a success story to prove their work and move forward. I don't doubt that this isn't fully approved by the government, but I do see the possibility of this having some backing due to the attention success will bring. The problems with the facility are many and the positives are very few. I see the removal of things such as breaks for recovery and mental counseling for the subjects to be a very jarring issue. The stress that subjects will be subjected to will no doubt negatively impact them all regardless, and the words of the head, my adoptive father, show that they have means to sweep things under the rug. I have no interest in supporting this facility, but I am interested in what I will have to do. I am curious about the curriculum. I intend to one day destroy this facility should it become a bigger issue per se, but I want to see for myself what the kids go through. Being told and hearing things is one thing, but experience is another. I am curious to see what my brother thinks in the future. Seal spoiled me, accidentally, that he will survive, which makes me glad. Being an older brother, or a brother in general, is a great pride to me, and supporting siblings always makes me feel accomplished. I wouldn't want to lose my sibling if I had the ability to prevent it. So once this is all over, I intend to ask him what he wants to do about this place, and if he says he wants it gone, then it shall disappear. On the other hand, should he support the facility and want to improve it, then I will begrudgingly support that notion too. I am a very supportive brother. As long as it doesn't interfere with the people I care for or love, much else doesn't matter to me anymore. I do, though, always try to act in the interest of the general populace, but family comes first. It also seems that our dear father here really doesn't care what happens to Kiyotaka and I, considering the fact I heard he had increased our generation's difficulty level. It was certainly an act to test the limits of the subjects to see the highest level of difficulty they could enforce to succeed going forward. Based on my assumptions, I think he put our generation to this level for governmental reasons on top of that, but I can't know for sure. Being a baby always gives me time to think about my life. I have realized one thing about Seal during my life with her for eons. As long as she is first, not much else matters to her. She does certainly get jealous of times when we can't interact in the material world, but otherwise a human lifespan to her is not long. She uses it to gain knowledge on his latest interests, but Rimuru doesn't know. I personally don't understand her stance in that regard. I can't imagine Seal with another person, let alone one of the opposite sex, for a lifetime. That would be absolute hell. The being would cease to exist along with their entire universe the second I learned of it. I do suppose we both also have different feelings. For me, Seal is mine and mine alone, but for Seal she must be first, otherwise not much else matters. She doesn't get bothered by these lives that I live for a time in other worlds. She actually has too much fun, I say. I mean, half the time she lives in the world physically too, but the other half she doesn't, yet still she remains unbothered. I feel like Seal just really likes to tease me, but she always has, so that's not new. Well timed to, in a sense, sit idle for a while till I can move freely. Time has passed, and here we are all lined up across from the instructors. For what but of course a test. We are two and the tests have started. This sets the tone for the future progression speed. It seems we are supposed to identify which hand holds a gummy bear. We can fail 3 times before the test is over. So the object of the test is to see if we can critically think and begin to notice patterns or hidden choices. This is my assumption based on the subject of the test. You get it right, you receive a gummy bear, and to kids who have not had treats or snacks practically ever, this is a major incentive. The gummy bears like this facility are very plain and bland. Flavorless gummies in a fully white facility, what a beautiful love child. Not at all, this is boring. I wish there was at least some color, maybe like black or gray, anything, but no, everything is almost entirely white. It seems none of the kids noticed anything so far. Well, that is to be expected, we are still toddlers. The first gummy was in the right hand, then left, and now something interesting happened. I see it out of the corner of my eye because of the way I positioned myself. Kiyotaka is observing the results the other kids receive. He realized that they're, the instructors, all holding the gummies in the same hand. He must have looked towards the others when he realized he was wrong. It seems the instructor noticed, though, since they're waiting for his answer before revealing the truth. He would probably realize, but I want to egg him on a bit. This is going to suck. I hate talking as a baby with a passion. Looking towards the instructor before me, I pointed behind him. He looked at me curiously. He knew what I meant, but he wanted me to spit it out. I will remember you. Hand. No gummy. We had done 5 rounds and I had gotten the answer 5 times. I still had 3 chances to fail, and I would use these to gain attention and to help my brother beside me. Sorry kid, no gummy. The instructor spoke in a smug but curious tone. I had successfully gained the attention I needed. I had sparked amusement. For them I displayed an amount of observational ability and comprehension, along with understanding the existence of extra options. I know Kiyotaka has displayed the same ability. The only difference between us is the fact he made his observation more obvious and I brought the extra options possibility first. I have a feeling he would have realized this possibility himself, but I have a goal and attention is needed for that goal. The test was already over for most kids. The only ones remaining at this point were Kiyotaka and I. He had gotten 2 answers wrong and 4 correct. I had 5 correct and 1 wrong. Now I have a choice to raise more curiosity or leave it at this level. I don't think the instructors care at this point and are doing this purely for amusement and curiosity sake, but that doesn't matter much to me. I felt like I needed to arouse more curiosity, but only to a level that the instructors will bring the results to the professor directly. I pointed behind the instructor again, as did Kiyotaka. We were both wrong, but the instructor gave Kiyotaka an extra chance and me my last. I was curious what Kiyotaka would do, but I already intended to point to the left and get it wrong. The reason I knew left was wrong was because I saw him put the bear behind himself this time. Kiyotaka pointed to the right and we both ended up wrong. I looked at his face and I saw a look of disappointment, but it was clear it wasn't over the gummies, it was the fact he was wrong. I doubt the instructors noticed this, but I did. After all, the eyes are still the windows to the soul, and even if my brother most likely has alexithymia in some regard, I can tell where his disappointment lies. Well, it seems I have a picture of the future relationship between me and Kiyotaka. Due to the human mind's development, it always affects your thoughts and ability to control your instincts. I can already see my sadistic side taking a bigger hold in this lifetime because of this facility, and I see myself having to show my brother emotions so he may learn to express his own. I don't doubt that this place will affect him. I want to interfere and give him better circumstances, but I cannot, at least not yet. I need more attention and I need more power. I just need to take it step by step. It has been 4 years, and not too long ago we started learning the 4 main writing systems in English: kanji, hiragana, katakana, and romaji. We also started martial arts. To say they're harsh would be an understatement. When it comes to writing, if your writing is not perfect, you lose points the same as if your answer was wrong. The passing requirement is extremely high, and those who fail to meet it are punished. The punishments range from being hit, to losing food, or being forced to redo an assignment. The martial arts practice is brutal. If I had to say it in one word, we are slammed onto the ground by an adult over and over again before we even begin to spar with each other. Kiyotaka seems to be, from what I have observed, very mediocre and average at everything to start, but he learns and adapts absurdly fast. Though today is most likely the last day the instructors will fuck with me, since I intend to make a scene and gain a lot of attention. I lined up opposite the instructor, taking a deep breath, and readied myself. I knew this was a gamble. I could either gain the attention I want to further along the progress of my goals, or I get punished. Frankly, punishment isn't an issue for me, as I would be fine regardless, but I don't intend to take that lying down. I was far outclassed in weight, size, strength, everything, but I had one thing that gave me a chance to succeed in this endeavor. I was far smaller and lighter. The thing that accounts for my biggest weakness is also my biggest strength. The current throw the instructor would be using was an Osotogari judo throw. The size difference made the throw significantly easier, but it gave me one big advantage. He had to bend down to reach my height, which left many openings for me to make many moves dependent on what he does in response. Ready. Start. The instructor moved in to grab me, but just before he could, I burst forward towards him. The instructor certainly wasn't expecting this, but he reacted quickly, though his reaction was the wrong choice. He could have stepped back a bit to regard the distance between us. He could have changed positions and throws, but he didn't. He tried to retract his arms inward to grab me and throw me. I knew from the beginning I had little means of causing actual harm to the instructor, but I just needed a small gap to succeed at my goal. My target was his legs. There are 2 pressure points I could hit on his legs to weaken his legs and disrupt his balance. The Zushanli and the Senyinjiao. One is closer to the knee and the other the ankle. As soon as I was close enough, I took the chance and moved as fast as I could and sent a kick with my right leg straight at the Senyinjiao pressure point it hit. I succeeded. The instructor's balance was destroyed and he fell towards the right, but as he tried to regain his balance, since he was lower now, I stuck the Zushanli point and he fully fell to the floor. Thank you, Seal, for hammering the pressure points into my brain. I swear I felt her say something back to me smugly, but I was too focused. I had to make a bigger impact. All I did was disrupt his balance by hitting 2 pressure points and making him fall to the ground. I then took action and swung at his Zhongmen pressure point right below the 11 rib on your body. If I was stronger, this would hurt badly, if not cause major harm, but my actions led to a decent amount of pain and discomfort. I had no more moves I needed to make. I succeeded in my goal. I brought attention towards me so much that the whole room was quiet for an instant, and the only noise that was heard was the groans and pained breaths escaping from the instructor who stood as my opponent mere moments ago. I knew I would be punished for this 100%, but I should have made an impact big enough to move forward with my plan. I had a few goals in mind and they all required one piece of the puzzle, in particular the curiosity and interest of my adoptive father. I waited a few moments but nothing happened. Odd. I should have been punished, reprimanded, or the room cleared to deal with me, but nothing happened. Well then, I suppose I should instigate some more reactions. I didn't realize I was fighting an oversized child. I've seen kids kicked harder and whine less. I looked at the instructor who I fought and spoke in a bored, displeased voice. The look in his eyes said everything I needed. His eyes widened before they quickly narrowed into a glare and I saw his neck flare out a bit. He stood up as I gazed at him, bored. He brought his leg back and in my head I thought, checkmate. I had more to add to my list of achievements. It was only a matter of time. You little shit. The instructor howled out angrily as he tried to kick me, no doubt trying to make me subservient and regretful of my actions against him. But I easily weaved his kick as all he had in it was anger. He wasn't paying attention to the possibility of me moving. Can we move on, or is this going to last all day? You're quite boring, you know. I continued to speak to him in a bored voice that also displayed with my tone that I was looking down on him. In reality I was. He truly was pitiful, considering that a 4-year-old could spur him to anger. Generally speaking, I was a respectful person, but in this case being disrespectful would do me far better. Stop. Don't let the kid get in your head. The instructor was preparing to kid me once again when 3 more instructors walked into the room and the one spoke out in a disappointed, curious tone. He was disappointed in the actions of his colleague and he felt curious at the fact that I, a child barely 4 years old, sent an instructor into this state. You follow me, the professor wants to see you. He approached me and spoke in an authoritative, slightly excited tone of voice. His voice to most would seem entirely monotonous, but it was clear with the way his mouth moved and the looks in his eyes he was holding back his actual feelings. Most instructors did this to remove anything deemed pointless, and emotions were one of those things. I simply nodded and followed the 3 instructors. I wasn't nervous by any means, but it felt suspicious how fast I received a call from him. I figured I'd need to wait at least a few more years. Maybe this deals with some of the things he said when he first learned of my existence. This was an unexpected variable, but it was very welcome. The sooner I get my plans in order, the better. After some time walking in silence, we arrived at the professor's room, and after being signaled to enter, I walked into the room and was left alone. It was just me and him in the room. Looks like the professor is starting his plans. I could faintly hear the words of the instructors as they faded, trailed off, becoming too faint for me to hear. Plans. I pondered a moment on the word, but I quickly put it behind me and looked towards the professor and stared at him in the eyes. I once again needed to make myself known and gain his attention more if my plans are to work. Sit Rimuru. His voice came out in a peculiar tone. He was clearly finding this turn of events in some regard entertaining, but he also appeared perplexed. You are aware of who I am. The head of this facility and my adoptive father. I spoke it out as a question more than a statement for the sole reason of confirmation on the direction this conversation may take based on his reactions to my response. How did you become aware of our relation? He narrowed his eyes, testing me. He knew the probable answer but wanted to hear it from my mouth. The instructors are the reason I know. I remember them mentioning me and Kiyotaka being your sons, and once I heard of me being adopted by chance. I can't obviously say I knew this since I remember his words from the day he decided I had worth in his possible goals. You don't appear to feel much of anything given this fact. He had no intentions other than to gauge my reactions, but he would not get a reaction like he expected. I simply stared at him blankly and bored. Your shocking indifference to the news is surprising. It was obvious he predicted this possible outcome the moment he started speaking about his identity. He just wanted to see what would happen. I suppose you called me here for a reason. I felt no desire to have a pointless conversation with him. His style of conversation in trying to figure every detail about me is quite boring. Yes, I have. You have attained some attention from your actions. You displayed the ability to critically think at 2 and have maintained first place in all your written exams since the beginning. Then to add to the achievements, you have a record of 144 wins and 0 losses during martial arts training, and now today you put an instructor on the ground at the age of 4. He emphasized the word achievements to show that this was not praise, he was stating facts. Praise is not given here for any actions. I was not the only one though to achieve high marks. Kiyotaka has been tied with me for the last 7 tests for first place and has 126 wins with 18 losses. Then behind me is Shiro with 134 wins and 10 losses. His marks are also quite high. I was not done with my statement when I was interrupted. My words had proved fruitful in the fact that this made him recognize my observational skills and my ability to scout out the other students. I am aware of everyone's results. I have no need for you to mention such details. Though this does add to your peculiarity and possible use. He spoke the last bit more to himself than to me, but it was said out loud intentionally. I intend to watch you closely now, don't disappoint me. He glared at me, fully intending to attempt at making me reel back and become submissive, but it won't work. Whether you watch me or not means nothing. I intend to act as I please. Whether this aligns with your desires or not means little to me. I spoke to the professor in a cold, emotionless voice. My normal tone I held, which relayed boredom, was nowhere to be seen, and with it my eyes held an empty, sharp glare. The pressure emanating in the room between the two of us was palpable. But I, despite being a child, held a far darker and heavier glare. It was clear to me as I glared at him, studying his expressions and his body language. He knew I was different, and he was shocked by the cold look I gave him. His eyes had slightly widened as I glared at him, and his jaw fell ever so slightly. I had won in this exchange and he knew it, but he refused to show it. Letting out a sigh, I stopped glaring at him and returned to my bored expression. This expression of pure boredom would be the biggest factor in making my plans succeed. I needed access to the outside. I planned to gain economic and political influence. I fully intended to take advantage of a small detail I had heard of recently and was confirmed by Seal. There was a school called ANHS and I intended to attend it with Kiyotaka. For that to happen, I either needed to escape or gain influence and attention that would make the professor accept our attendance. Before I left the room, I left the professor with one last thing. I don't intend to take anything lying down, Father. The only intention behind these words was to show that I, a 4-year-old, am already aware of the fact that I am being seen as an object and I do not perceive this man as family in any regard. Let the games begin. Atsuomi Pav, Professor Ayano Koji. I had been sitting in my office when I received a report. Someone in the 4th generation had put an instructor onto the ground. I held a certain amount of surprise at the news, and this only grew when I learned who had done it, but more so on the how. Professor, a subject has forced an instructor to the ground. Who was able to put an instructor on the ground? I was extremely disappointed in the instructor who was bested by a 4-year-old, but I felt more curiosity as to who was able to do it. It was Subject 4 to 81 Rimuru. He rushed towards the instructor as judo practice began and he recounted how Rimuru had knocked the instructor onto the ground and even on how he instigated the instructor's emotions, making him try to lash out. I no longer cared for the instructor and the fact that one was beaten by a 4-year-old, but on the way it was done. I quickly pulled out the folder labeled 4 to 81 Rimuru. The first number referred to the generation they were a part of and the second referred to the evaluation order when they entered the White Room. I then began to look through his reports on his actions and was once again surprised by the amount of reports I had referring to him. He alone had more than a quarter of his generation's reports dealing in his actions alone. After him were subjects 402 Shiro, 404 Yuki, and 401 Kiyotaka, my biological son. Together those four held 73% of all the reports when you looked at their generation as a whole. Then I found a report that was small but came up repeatedly. Subject 4 to 81 Rimuru was seen inspecting his body, applying pressure at various points on his body. Subject 4 to 81 Rimuru has been observed investigating pressure points on his body. Subject 4 to 81 Rimuru has been noticed signaling to other subjects, primarily subjects 401, 402, and 404, to inspect pressure points on their own body. Subject 4 to 81 Rimuru was recorded relieving pain and discomfort by applying pressure to acupuncture points on subjects. Subject 4 to 81 Rimuru has been recorded researching various books on human anatomy in the library. These research topics mainly pertain to pressure points and vital locations. Subject 4 to 81 Rimuru incapacitated 3 fellow subjects during martial arts training by striking him precisely at vital pressure points at the mandibular angle. Subject 4 to 81 Rimuru was seen applying pressure to a point in his hand to relieve pain. It hit me as I went through these reports. Rimuru had discovered the existence of pressure points and used it to his advantage. He learned of these points and planned to use them against the instructors. This boy I adopted on a whim, thinking he would have a special use, has opened up many more pathways due to his actions. I decided to have him called to my office, and I saw the same face I remember the day I decided to adopt him. Complete and utter boredom. He didn't look worried or nervous in the slightest at the possibility that he may be punished or at the implications behind me calling him to my office. That was one thing that set him apart from all the other subjects since day one. He was always seemingly bored. He never looked lost or confused about anything. He always garnered some amount of attention to the point he was a subject always watched. He had no sleep problems, never complained, and he never made a scene until now. He gained the attention of those above him, slowly but surely increasing the amount of attention he gained from his actions. He made no effort to seem overly superior to his peers either. He may have remained at the top in martial arts and in exams, but he always made it seem close. His reports came in constantly, which surprised me and made me curious at times, but I figured it was due to the fact that he was very easy to notice. After all, silvery blue hair and soul-piercing golden eyes are very standoffish features. But now that I look at it all, his reports together show one thing. This boy is highly intelligent and a genius in some regards. He was not the perfect subject for the White Room, but if he and another succeed, we will have all the pieces necessary to move forward undisturbed. I intended to have him spit out information about his thoughts and his reasons behind his actions, but strangely he appeared fully aware of what I was doing. He had immense awareness behind the various nuances in conversation. He may not have knowledge on it, but he certainly inherently understands it. He was entirely aware of the meaning behind some words and phrases I used, and he even used such hidden meanings against me. This kid will help in the creation of a success in the White Room's goals. He cannot be the masterpiece as he is a genius no matter how you look at him, but he can help create one. I have no confirmation, but I see the potential in 3 subjects as of now, though I have little belief that any of them will succeed, considering the 4th generation is purely an experiment to figure out the limitations the body can take for the future. I thought he couldn't surprise me enough today, but he showed an ability that none of his reports shared. He was extremely perceptive and aware of his surroundings. This includes his peers' ability and position in various facets. He even gained an interest in the only other 3 promising subjects who also happened to have gained attention like him, just not to his degree. I needed to make him know that he was below me, and I decide what can or cannot happen, but he took my glare, which even made grown men shudder as if it was nothing, and even returned my glare with his own. The air in the room was heavy as he and I glared at each other, but I couldn't help feeling slightly oppressed by his gaze. It was a great surprise, but then he stopped glaring and the pressure disappeared as if it was never there, and his face became entirely bored again. After he left the room, I was left with a few thoughts. Rimuru, this boy, if he continues as he is, will be useful outside the White Room to gain influence, and that this boy for my sake needs to hit a wall, otherwise I will lose any chance of control over him entirely. The future of the White Room seems to be looking stellar. Don't disappoint me.